All right, so let's start this off with just a really big thank you and shout out to Laura from taking time out of her schedule and the craziness of life right now to share with us some of her experience from her class on Saturday. So like the 10-second background on it is that obviously she had an in-person class that she had to move online. So like that pretty much sums it up. So what I'm going to kind of do is I have a couple questions I jotted down just to kind of ask Laura, and then we'll do time for questions that you guys have after she's done at the end. Does that sound fair? So Laura, why don't you just tell us maybe a little bit about what you did to prep for the class? That could be like things that you listened to or watched, or what you told the people coming, anything along those lines. What would you say?
Sure, yeah. So up until about 2 days before the class, I was planning to do in person. So all the prep work was pretty much the same from what we've been talking about with the back to basics from Elise. And so I had done the sampling. I had done the follow up with that of how are the samples going? Are they working? Do you want to try something else? And all of the response there was great. Like it was phenomenal response. People loving the samples, having some really great, amazing successes already. So they were really excited about the class. And so then when it came to switching it, a lot of them were, I kind of had, do like the sad phone call, like, so we're not having the class in person. But a lot of them were really glad that we were going to do it on Zoom, and they were pretty familiar with it. So it was an easy transition to say, here's the link. We're going to do it here. It's going to be, as much of the same that we could do it, but a few things will be different, of course, because we're not in person. So, so the samples that I had given out before were all those individual samples, right? So like the ones of what do you want to work on? If you have, some pain, here's this, and sleep, here's that. So those are all pretty similar. And yeah, I think going back, like I wish I would have maybe sent out some samples like that peppermint, just so like we could experience it together. That was one thing I went back thinking like that would have been a fun thing to say, like, okay, pull out your peppermint and do that. I just didn't do it. I didn't have time. I didn't have time to like mail it or like drive it over to a bunch of houses. So yeah, that was kind of what I did before. So I did the back to basics from Elise. I also used the slideshow from Sarah. I think it was Sarah Jensen.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Who had just given that out, and I tweaked it just to do the slides that I wanted for it. It was basically the kits was the part that I used. And then also I listened to that live video from Michelle and took a couple of tips that she had of from the slideshow kind of PowerPoint part, and also just kind of how to talk to people when you're online and how to keep them engaged and to have them respond and that. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, amazing. So Michelle's training you listen to, you use Sarah Jansen's PowerPoint, you use the outline that we have. Did you send them anything ahead of time besides the samples for the class? Did you? Yeah.
Yep. So I did actually email them the handout because I was going to have a handout for them to take notes. It was let's see, what handout was it?
Essential oils made easy.
Yeah, essential oils. Yeah, because I got it from you. so, so I sent out that just to say like, hey, print this out if you want. If you don't, no problem. You can use a pen and paper, but this is just the handout that I was going to have for you. I didn't send anything with kits yet. I just kind of kept it basic of here's what we're going to talk about. And the instructions of how to do Zoom if they needed it in the email that I sent out prior to. And so it was like a phone call, hey, we're going to switch the class up, and then an email to do that. Because there were some that said, I can't do the Zoom call. So I said, okay, that's fine. We'll follow up one-on-one then and do it kind of like a one-on-one class.
Okay, perfect. Tell me really quickly, so on your end, so now we're to the class, right? People have hopped on Zoom. What did you have like on your side of the screen? What oils did you have with you, or like what did you have prepared so you were ready for that presentation?
Yeah, so I had my oils. I did have my orange and my peppermint with me just to kind of show and use that way, and to give an example of how to use it, rubbing it, in your hands, breathing it in. I had my keychain with me. with the samples that I was going to give away, like in the class when they would interact with me. So I could kind of show them like, this is, you know, they could see me like opening it and do that. And then also show them like what the sample was that they were going to be getting. I did still give out samples. I said, hey, this is going to be coming in the mail to you, so look for it. Just to kind of keep that interaction piece, I guess. I thought that was important. And let's see, I had my notes with me from like my presentation. I had the slideshow ready to go to share it on the screen. I had like kind of my own like kit handout too with me, just so I could kind of reference that as I talked about it. Being like when it's, you know, that was my first like presentation with a Zoom call. So, you know, when you share your screen, you can't see on your screen, you can't see your notes. So I wanted to make sure I had my notes beside me, so I still knew like what I was saying, even though I couldn't see it, because I did have my screen and my notes together. So, like with the video and all that. So that's what I had.
Okay, perfect. And then another question for like the actual class portion, aside from the clothes, which we'll talk about in a minute, were there other pieces of the outline that you changed, or did you pretty much stick to what the outline was?
For the back to basic outline,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think pretty much stuck to it. I don't think I changed much. I mean,
I don't
you were
think you
there. So
modified anything. I know, sorry.
what
I
did
don't
I
think you
talk
modified.
about? Yeah, I think it was pretty much the same. There might have been a few like wording things that I tweaked here and there, but I mean, just to make it more my own, but
Yeah.
I think it was pretty much the same. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then let's talk about the clothes then. So who on here, can we just raise hands really quickly? Who has watched Michelle Cannon's video that some of us have seen it. Okay. So Laura, wouldn't you recommend? I thought it was good. My mom told me to watch it. It was super helpful. So for those of you who watch this, it might make a little more sense. And then anyway, okay. That's the biggest thing. So Laura, why don't you explain a little bit how you did the clothes to make it work in an online format?
Yeah, so that was the part I was probably the most nervous about, because you don't have the after time to talk to them about kits. So what I liked about Michelle's video, she made it personal like right away by allowing them the option to text you. And she also was a firm stickler on wait for them to text you. Like just embrace it and say, hey, I got your text. Great. All right, I'm still waiting for, you know, so and so. Which is kind of awkward, but also when everybody does it, it feels fine. So during the class, I did have, I think at one of the points, I had them write down their 3 goals, their health goals. So I could have like them just write that down. And then I said, we'll just keep going back and we'll reference that. So then when it came down to the kits, I had the slideshow. I showed them each kit, kind of walked them through that. And then at the end said, hey, now here's the part where I want you to text me. So you have your health goals. Write down text me which kit sounded interesting to you, kind of intrigued you, or maybe there was a product that stood out to you that we've talked about tonight or that I explained, and text me that. And so I kind of just got the ball starting of us having that conversation of what are you interested in? What's standing out to you? What do you want to talk to me more about later? Because I said we will also touch base one-on-one in a little bit. And this is going to be kind of the jumping point for that discussion. So I know where you're going and what we can follow up with. So I did that. I waited for them to text me, and I got all the text messages. So I got everybody to respond to me, which was great. And then a little bit later, after I go through, you know, the type of people and that sort of thing, then when it comes down to the actual closing, then I had a time where I said, I'm going to talk to you guys each individually really briefly tonight. So it's just going to be a 5 to 10 minute conversation. And I'm just going to basically just say, hey, what are your health goals? What stood out to you? I see that you put this. Was there anything else? Where are you at, like in this kind of process of thinking about it? And what's our next step was what I covered. So so from everybody, I got a response of either I had a sign up sheet that I then put the link in the chat box, and they clicked that and they could sign up for a time and they could see where other people were. So they saw what was available. I had either of them do that, or I even had a couple people just text me say, hey, I can't write after class, but can we talk on Monday? And so I said, sure, what time? And we set a time right there. So some people did the format, like the form that I had in the chat box, and some just texted me. And if it didn't work tonight, then I said, that's okay. Then let's set a time for this. And then we followed up then. Does that answer it for you?
Yes, that was perfect. I just want to say, so I watched Michelle's video after. I didn't know. So Laura and I talked on Zoom when the class was going to switch to online, being like, okay, let's brainstorm some different things. One of the things being the close. So we talked a little bit about like, is there a way to set up like a sign up sheet for appointment times? We like talked about that a little bit, but she took the lead with that text me slide from Michelle. I hadn't seen that before. I'd never thought of that. And so I'm like, everything's pretty familiar, back to basics class. And all of a sudden she like pops up this slide and she's like, text me. And I'm like, this is brilliant. And then she sat there and waited for people to respond. And I was like, this is gutsy and I kind of like it. I was like, what's she doing? What's she doing? What's happening now? And sure enough, she's like, and so-and-so texted me, thanks. It's so great. I'm so glad to hear from you. And I was like, oh my gosh, she actually waited for them to text back. So I just like, I really, I love watching all of you present. Like seriously, I got to see Sonia doing Oils of the Bible. I've seen Em do a back to basics class recently. I just saw Laura do this twice in person and online. And I just like, I always love watching it because I'm like, that was so great. And what's so meaningful to me is to sit in it as an attendee and really feel what it's like. And so some of you are thinking like, oh wow, that would be so weird. But honestly, it was amazing. And Laura was like, it was perfect because it was about where her heart was at. And people were like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to text right now. So for any of you who are like, oh, that's like no go for me, it actually was really cool. So I was super impressed at what Laura did. I thought it was amazing.
I was amazed that it worked, honestly, because I was like, this could be just really awkward and we're just going to stare at each other. But it worked. They really did. They really did respond in it, and it turned out to be really good. Mm-hmm.
And then Laura commented, I don't know if some of you guys saw her comment on one of my posts in Fierce Leaders, but so since then you've had those like 5 to 10 minute chats, and from those, tell us a little bit about what you've done since those or through those.
Yeah, so I had a couple like right away chats that night. I had a couple follow-ups on Monday. And those like 10-minute, I just kind of, even for like the follow-ups on Monday, I just texted saying, hey, we're still connecting today, at this time. It'll be really quick. It'll be just like that 10-minute. I didn't want to start off on something longer than what they were anticipating. So I did that. It turns out for just Amy kind of said, like, I'm new in this community. We just moved here and I'm getting to know these ladies. What I've learned is that these ladies know about oils. They have some oils, but they don't actually know how to use them. Like they never had the education part. And so that's where I'm stepping into, like in this community of women that I'm starting in. So that's really interesting, and that's a big piece missing for them, a big piece of the puzzle. So a lot of them were like, yeah, there's like products here and there, but I already have some. And so, I just don't know if I'm ready to do anything big yet, like any kind of a big purchase. And I said, that's totally fine. What we can do is then have that longer conversation and set that up so I can see what do you really have, and where we can go from there. Like use what you have maybe, but then also see like a better picture of like that these were your health goals. So do you have the oils that you want for your health goals? Do you know how to use the oils that you have for your health goals? That kind of a follow-up conversation is happening now. So I have lots of those longer conversations set up. So it is more and more like conversations, I think, down the road, but that's just where these ladies are. And that's where I want to help them understand if what they have is powerful, then they can use it for the reasons that they have it. And it's not just going to sit there like I think it has been for a few years, is kind of my feel of what these ladies have. So.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet for a minute and see if other people on here have questions for you. And then I have a couple extra thoughts. So go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question for Laura.
I have a question with the kits in that PowerPoint. I know they don't have prices, and you alluded to something like that in one of your comments. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I kind of went both ways. I had the thought like right before presentation that I was like, should I put prices in here? There aren't any prices in here. I didn't even notice it. And so I didn't. I didn't put them in. And I guess I thought, you know, in some ways it kind of removes the distraction of like numbers and we can just talk about products. And then when we touch base about which kit stood out to you, I did have one person that I emailed her an actual like kit handout PDF form because she was interested about what were the prices of them. So I said, sure, I'll email this to you, and then when we talk on Monday, we'll touch base about it. And that was really helpful. She really appreciated that. So I did that for her. I didn't do that for everybody because I just kind of waited to see what each person's response was individually. So I don't know, like next time if I would put the prices on or not, because I think they were just focused on product and it worked.
That's a really good question and good feedback too. Anybody else have a question?
This was excellent. I do have questions, and I don't want you to feel like I'm challenging you. I'm truly, sincerely trying to understand, so I'm going to preface that. When you said you waited for your texts and you told them that you wanted to talk to each one for 5 to 10 minutes, you told them that on the call, and then you hung up and you called each one of them, and you did, but they filled out a little form also. You just kind of lost me.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So at the point, I'm trying to remember exactly when I think it was like during that testimonies, like when they're sharing their testimonies, after they share their testimonies, I had them write down their health goals. And when they talked about their health goals, I think I then said, I'm going to talk to you specifically about these later. I kind of dropped it in a few different times. Mm-hmm. And then when I had them text me, I said, and I'm going to talk to you about this later tonight. Mm-hmm. So I kind of prepped them that way. And then when it came down to the end of actually setting up the form, I had just a Google document that I shared the link to, and I had it set up with times like 8 o'clock, 8:10, 8:20, 8:30. Okay. And so they could each individually then click the link. They could put their names in. It worked. I saw them I had the Google document up, and I saw them putting their names in. Okay. And so then our class ended probably like 7:45. So I had about 15 minutes to kind of organize my thoughts of like, okay, this person is who I'm going to talk to. What did they text me? Kind of write that note down so that when I call them at 8 o'clock, I'm ready. Hey, I saw this was your text. This is what you were interested in, what kit you were interested in, or what oil. And then I asked them what were their health goals that they wrote down so I could have those as well. And then just kind of asked them like, so where are you at? What are you thinking for tonight? Do you want to move ahead with this kit, or would you appreciate a follow-up call where we can spend a little bit more time one-on-one? And so those are kind of the two options I gave them.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. And another question I had was, I am going to just say, hey, Finn, I'm just going to say that I get a little bogged down by how long sometimes the Back to Basics outline feels. And Michelle Cannon in her video says it, it should be pretty short. You don't want to go on. And so how did you handle that? I mean, Amy, you were an observer of this and you feel like it went really, really well. And Laura, you're saying that you followed the Back to Basics outline. So it must have gone longer than the shorter time that Michelle Cannon talks about. I just wondered if you could address that.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm still actually figuring out. This is only my second time doing the Back to Basics. One was in person, one was on Zoom. So the one in person I felt like it was really long compared to like what her recommendations are. Like this should only take 45 minutes. Like this part of that class is like the initial part is 45 minutes. It's not 45 minutes for me. I don't know if it is for you guys. I feel like it's kind of long. So doing it on Zoom was definitely faster, but still like time for everything. I think it was 1 hour and 15 minutes total, I think was about the class length. And I think at the end it kind of felt long to me. So I would be open to shortening it. I just don't know what I would do yet to
Mhm.
shorten it. So I'd be interested to know what you guys think as well, actually, if you feel like there's parts that can be shortened or
Hmm.
maybe left out. I don't know.
Well, excuse me. I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I mean, I was just going to finish up. I have one quick last question, then I'll shut up and you guys can go. You said that you did the sampling based on back to basics of what area you're trying to change in. Okay, and you sent those samples or delivered them. And I found it interesting that Michelle talks about just picking two that you've had personal experiences that are really amazing with and sharing. And I thought it interesting that she chose, I understand Breathe. I think it's really hard to explain, like Sonia and I were talking about, like a wow experience, like with On Guard. It's a little more complicated. So when you have had, now you did the, you said you wish that you had included like peppermint and wild orange, which honestly would, if I had to pick two, those would be my two, right? So now that you've done it that way, would you go with just sending two, like Michelle says, or would you go with sending all of them, or do you have any feedback? And then I'll shut up. Thanks.
No, I think that's a great question. And my initial thought, I don't know, actually, I have no idea, but my initial thought is maybe it depends if they're people I see in person or not. I don't know if that would make a difference. Like if it's somebody kind of like that connection down the road, or, like not a local person, and I am just going to send them two things. I did think it was really interesting that she just picked the samples for them. She just picked Breathe and On Guard. I think that's really interesting. I do like, though, knowing people's health concerns a little bit, because I like knowing how to start working with them. And so, and if they have a wow experience, like one lady, I gave her a sample of the Copaiba, and she's like, it's amazing. I've never had so much pain relief. This is just incredible. So, I mean, that's a really great experience for her. And then her coming to the class and sharing that, I think was really impactful too for the class. So
Yeah, she did mention having like a plant or somebody in there. Amy, you were there. I don't know if you chimed in, but you can almost have, like, you were quiet, so unlike me, but you could have somebody in there like Michelle recommends that could like chime in, because those people don't know if you're new to oils or not either. So
right, yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it is. There's a lot of good thoughts out there. I don't know yet. I'm just trying it.
Jerry, what was your question?
No, in listening to Sarah just earlier today, it made sense to me just to offer, I like her idea of just offering the one kit. I think it was Healthy Essentials, or was the top 10 with the diffuser. And then once she met with them privately and heard their health concerns, then you could kind of gear them into a different kit. But online in the class, just offering that one made sense to me. To shorten it up, yeah.
I thought that was really interesting too, Jerry. I agree.
Yeah, shortening it in price-wise too, I think that's interesting a little bit. I don't know.
Other questions for Laura? I have just a couple quick thoughts.
Wait, I have a question. Sorry. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I was like, couldn't unmute it in time. Okay, so I feel like, I'm sorry, my brain is mush. I'm like so dense. Okay, so I'm like really curious about this, and I feel like it's super pivotal and a piece that I'm missing in my online classes. So I just want to grasp. You said fill out this Google form with a slot, and they put in their name and their phone number.
I just had them do their name because I already had their phone numbers. I had already texted them, that like 2 hours before the class reminder. Yes. I had already texted them that. So I had everybody's phone number. I could call them. And I told them I was going to call them, and I did, and nobody, didn't answer. So, but you could do like a phone number if you don't have it already. Or I feel like there's something else I was thinking I could have had them do. Oh, also like asking them like, hey, do you want to do a phone call or do you want to do a Zoom chat really quick? You could maybe give them the option like, hey, if you're still at your computer, we can do that, or phone, or whatever, if they want to stay face to face. So I would maybe do that next time. What's easiest, phone call or a Zoom call really quick. But then just say, I'm going to call you at this time, and whether it's a 10-minute window or a 15-minute window, I guess you could see however much time you have after the class to do it. And then I did also wait to make sure that I had everybody signed up for a slot too before I moved on and kind of closed the class, because that was the last thing. Then I said, all right, I'm glad you all are here. I got your times of when we're going to connect next. And so, thanks for coming, and I'll be in contact with you in just a few minutes, really, because I was in contact with everybody.
Okay. So when you got to the part during the close, you said, text me. What they're texting you is which kit they're interested in, which oils they're interested in, right?
Yes. Yep. Got it. And I did think about having them text like their health goals to me as well. I don't know, maybe that would be helpful too. It's kind of a little bit of like, how much do you have them do and how much do you have them not? It kind of felt easier just to do the one, because maybe they were still thinking about health goals throughout us continuing to talk about our conversation, and that would just be a lot of waiting. So
yeah. Okay, got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
I know, yeah. Some people, they'll take a long time to text that. They'd be like, how do I mute myself and do talk to text? Yeah. Okay, so Melissa asked, do you think it's important to have a PowerPoint to share? Is it okay if I answer that really quick? I have a quick thought on that. I think that what Laura really only used it for showing the kits. Here's what I think the PowerPoint's helpful for: a visual for kids. I do think it's helpful to have a visual on that. And so if you're just simplifying it down to Healthy Start, like Michelle did, and she literally has one, I was almost like, I have to go order one to be able to hold up. Because the truth is, just to be able to show that kit, even if it's the empty box and use all the oils, I don't even care. But that was her visual. So I think you could replace it. But I think the key is a kit visual for sure. Okay, good. Other questions? I have a couple quick thoughts on some of the things. I thought those were all really good questions. So as far as the Back to Basics outline, okay, so I think we would all agree, I mean this not in any unkind way, that Elise's forte is not online. She's never been online until recently. She hasn't built her business online. That's not her thing. Michelle Cannon, her thing is online. So, and I do know from just kind of watching that Michelle is paying attention to following what Elise did, I think through the lens of a little more online specific format. So that being said, Michelle to me is like mass producing the Back to Basics format, which again, that's not the right phrase, but her personalization comes later. So that like lots of like back and forth and all those things, like she's like, here are the 10 oils, here's the one kit. And then when she gets individually with them is when she's kind of like getting deeper. So I think it's okay to kind of blast a very neutral message, because the reality is if you're appropriately getting contact info, you can go deeper, more personalized as you go in those contacts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That just clicked, because she spends a lot of time really screening people before she even gets them on the call. That's a pretty labor-intensive process that she does when you're jotting down the 3 questions they have to answer. And then she goes through all this verbiage until she even gets them on the call. And then the calls seem to go like 15 minutes. She's done. Yeah. And then she digs deeper again. So it's like a lot in the beginning, and then on the call, it's pretty concise, and then it grows again.
I didn't ask Laura if I could do this, but I'm actually going to share a couple of the thoughts that I emailed to her after I had seen her present those 2 classes, because here's why I think this is helpful. Because a lot of us on this call, a lot of us who are fierce leaders, are working really hard to appropriately share a product that we love and we know is life-changing, but also walk a fine line of like relationships, right? Always making the best decision, and especially right now in light of everything that's going on. So what I love about what Laura has done and what I just watched her do in person and online is that she really, like, she's only been in Merrill, in this new town. It's really only 4 months, right? She and her family were plopped there. There's been a lot of transition. Her husband is a pastor, so she and I have talked at great length about what's the dynamic of entering into a new town as the pastor's wife and being really aware of the dynamic of doing it extra well, which we all are aware of, but I think we can all agree that that's super important, right? So she is like, people are like watching what she's doing and how she's doing it. And I saw these people show up at these classes, super ready to go, super well sampled, like very, I know it was so obvious that she had prepped them very well and very appropriately. And she really, and what she shared has followed the model of what we're learning and inserting her authenticity and her care and her service into it. So I think it's a really great testimony that it is possible to do this in a way that aligns with who we are and what we hope for our relationships and our interactions with people. I also just have to affirm, guys, she prepared really well. Her days are full. Her life is full. She has a lot on her plate. Nap times are short or non-existent. They're juggling a lot, and she prepped and she got it done and she made it happen. She practiced. I didn't hold her hand. I didn't even role play it on Zoom with her. I'm like the worst leader ever. Like, she did it and showed up and was ready to go. And that effort paid off. Her presentations were beautiful and authentic, and they were delivered really well. And I know I could see how the people there felt in those rooms and on that Zoom. Same thing about the closing. I just thought she did such a good job. She leaned in so well. So I just kind of wanted to affirm her for that, but also for you guys to kind of see the background of the work that she put in to get those results. The one last thing I would say is that you can see in what Laura's doing the dynamic we've talked about now, that like the more context, the better, right? But all the work that can be. But the people that Laura's interacting with, the reason that this is going the way it is for her is because they're seeing that she shows up. Like, she shows up when she says she will. She does what she says she's going to do. And she shows up each time and cares for them and delivers on her word. And so that goes a really long way too. So I know that this is kind of like, again, how we all think, but I really wanted to affirm what Laura did. It was truly, I thought it was powerful. It was powerful to watch. And it's been really remarkable to watch her plant her in a new town and do this. She's done one-on-ones for most of her oil business career. And these were kind of the first foray into a group format. And she was amazing. Laura, I really appreciate, again, you taking the time, another evening out of your precious evenings, to do this with us, because I know it helps a lot of people.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a pleasure to do it, and I couldn't do it without you and all the classes that we've had up to this, the prepping with Elise and that, and also, I mean, it's a teamwork. These aren't my PowerPoints, these aren't my presentations, but it's a gathering of just a lot of information. So, yeah. It's paying off right now. I mean, and two, the relationships from it, like I've said with you, is like my biggest thing is that I want people to know that they're cared for in a very authentic way. And that it's not about me at all. This isn't for me at all, but it's just to help them and to help them with a lot of stuff that they already kind of have, but they just don't know how to use it. And yeah, I wanted to help them out with that way. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Laura.